It's scientifically proven that poetry and visual arts offer aesthetic pleasure through their rhythm and symmetry. Dr. Bălinișteanu and his partners focus on the biological universals of the aesthetic experience. Their purpose is to detect the neurophysiological mechanisms underpinning aesthetic pleasure. The project is the cornerstone of the first neuroesthetic laboratory in Romania, while also leading efforts to integrate more women in science research. Keep watching Research in the Spotlight to learn how PoeticA explores the universals of human expressions in art. You are implementing a collaborative research project funded under the Norway Grants. What is your project about?
We work in the area of neuroesthetics. Neuroesthetics is the neuroscientific study of aesthetic perception. So we focus on the neural mechanisms involved in the creation and perception of art. My background as PI is I have dual qualifications. So one is in literary studies and one is in cognitive neuroscience. And we started from a previous focus of my research on the Irish poet William Butler Yeats. William Butler Yeats wrote at a time when Ireland was trying to figure out its way between nationalism and cosmopolitanism. And I have always been this was a very troublesome period in Irish history, and William Butler Yeats is a poet who has spent a very long and painful time in deep introspection, trying to figure out basically the question of whether it is better to be nationalistic or cosmopolitan. And this is at the core of our project. We are trying to answer this question. How do you negotiate in the contemporary world, so about 100 years later than Yeats, the same dilemmatic political choice of political attitudes? Do we choose nationalism at the expense of cosmopolitanism or cosmopolitanism at the expense of nationalism? So this is where we started from, and then I have always wondered how does literary experience, the experience of someone who reads literature or listens to a recitation, how is that person influenced in the most concrete ways? What does that aesthetic experience do to you? How does it compel you to act in concrete ways in social reality? And this is where neuroscience comes in, because it offers us the possibility to look at neural mechanisms that are almost automatic. And so they, in some ways, often precede conscious expression. And in our case, we focus on poetic rhythm. Rhythm is linked to anticipation of pattern and fulfillment of that anticipation. So expectation that a pattern will occur again and again. And when that expectation is fulfilled, we experience a feeling of joy. And this is almost, joy is maybe too much, but we get a little bit of dopamine out of that. And this is if you wish, rhythm is, produces a visceral effect. So an automatic effect that we feel in our body, and we may not necessarily explain it to ourselves in consciousness. And therefore, if you have a poem that has very regular rhythm, we hypothesize that there will often, that expectation of reoccurring rhythmic pattern will often be fulfilled, and so we will have a little bit more dopamine in our neural circuits, and therefore we will enjoy that poetry that has a regular rhythm. But there is another source of pleasure when we talk about rhythm. Very often rhythm is very complex, but the complexity is solvable. And then we have another source of reward or aesthetic pleasure, which is solvable complexity. And so when we hear a complex rhythm, I think for someone who is less familiar with poetry, jazz would be an example that has a lot of complex rhythm, but we still enjoy it. And we enjoy it because we can solve the rhythmical complexity. We can, after all, find pattern where there isn't one apparently. And when we do find it, that is when we solve the rhythmic complexity, and we get pleasure out of that as well. And so we have two competing sources of pleasure when we talk about rhythm. That pleasure that comes from fulfilled expectation of reoccurring rhythmical patterns, and pleasure that comes from solvable complexity.
Are there any partial results that you would like to share with us so far?
I should say that a lot of our work consisted in creating an EEG database, so where we collected about 70,000 minutes of EEG signal. That is a lot, but we wanted to offer an EEG signal database that is matched to an entire poetry collection. So this is in many ways a unique endeavor, because we have the collection we focus on, the Tower by William Butler Yeats. We recorded a recitation of the entire collection, and each of our 50 participants listened to the entire collection while we collected their EEG signal. Now it takes months to process EEG signal for one line of verse, and we have a database that will probably give us, we could mine this database for years to come, and we plan to mine it until 2028, because that is when we celebrate 100. It's the centennial anniversary of the first publication of the collection. There is a decade of centenaries in Ireland that concerns the entire European continent, because that is when the major writers born in Ireland have written their works of universal importance, and we could mention also James Joyce. I think everyone has heard of him. So in between 2020 and 2030, we celebrate a lot of these achievements that happened 100 years ago, and we would like to offer to all researchers in Europe this immense database of this very important collection in the history of literature called The Tower by William Butler Yeats. So this is one thing that that is important, on which we hope to build future collaborations with Norway as well as other European partners. We also have a publication contract for the first neuroesthetics manual in the world, and this would be a world premiere. Neuroesthetics is very new. The discipline has maybe 30 years since since the first researchers started to work in this area, and there are several collections of essays, anthologies, that are destined to a specialist audience, but we aim to create a manual that can be used by university professors all over the world who do not necessarily have a scientific background. And we are the first team in the world that has thought of the importance of such an endeavor. And so we have a publication contract with Palgrave Macmillan, and we will publish the manual. The manual, our deadline is 1st of May 2023 for the manuscript, and we hope to have it on the market by the end of 2023.
We are discussing a collaborative project involving a team of researchers with various backgrounds and an international partnership with two prestigious universities in Norway. What does it mean to you and to the team you coordinate such a partnership, and what are the benefits?
So there are benefits that can be discussed in very concrete terms, such as the organization of experiments that we couldn't have undertaken in Romania, and which will be organized in Norway. And there are more general benefits that concern our integration within international, European, and transatlantic networks, academic networks. So talking about very concrete benefits, we had the unique chance as a non-medical department to prepare and design an fMRI experiment in the area of neuroesthetics. And this could have only been done with access to a Norwegian facility, where it is more common for non-medical researchers to access fMRI facilities. So this is, in very concrete terms, this is a benefit that that we regard, we are very happy about. We do think that this can create a precedent. So we bring this type of approach. We make the national academic community more open or more aware that those fMRI facilities that currently exist in Romania in hospitals could be open to non-medical research, such as our research, which is in the area of cognitive neuroscience and does not necessarily have an immediate medical application or an immediately visible application in health. When speaking about the internationalization of our lab and university, that is another benefit that we are very excited about. We have organized together an international conference that we are organizing it. It will take place in February 2023, 22nd, 26th of February. And through our network and through our connections, pulled together, that means NTNU, UIB, and the University of Suceava, we have managed to invite 4 keynote speakers who are major scholars in neuroscience, psychology, medical psychology, and who have been working in the area of neuroesthetics. And we will make this experience available to the Romanian academic community, and that includes staff, academic staff, as well as students. We have about 33 to 60 scholarships that we offer to participants. They could come and have accommodation and conference fees covered from the grant. We hope to have as wide participation as possible. But this, more importantly, this helps us to become that hub I was talking about earlier, a hub for neuroaesthetics research in Romania and regionally in Southeastern Europe. One other thing that has had an impact on a more personal level is the richness of our research team. I feel I should say a few words about that because it is very highly interdisciplinary and an unusual mix. We would have a team that would shine in any part of the world because we have from the University of Bergen, we have an fMRI specialist who works in a medical psychology department. We have a computational linguist. We have a neuroesthetician with background, with both medical background and background in the history of art. And from NTNU, we have a historian of art and a research assistant who is doing a PhD in psychology. From the University of Suceava, we have the PI who has background in literary studies and neuroaesthetics. We have a bioengineer, a professor in bioengineering, and we have 2 research assistants, one in applied engineering and the other one in linguistics and the language of cinematic images. And so this is just by enumerating these qualifications, hopefully I have managed to convey the richness of our interactions, from which scholarly interactions from which we benefited each in different ways. So this diversity and richness of the team has been an opportunity for us to develop both personally and professionally. And so this is more about the impact that the project had on each of us individually.
In conclusion, what should people keep in their mind about your project after listening to this podcast?
We would, however, argue in favor of cosmopolitanism as having an evolutionary advantage because we connect nationalism with the safety of the group, with emotional security, and that is all fine and necessary, but we evolve by exploring new challenges. So when I spoke of solving rhythmical complexity, we can, and the pleasure we derive from that, we can extend that perspective to any areas of our lives. So we do develop personally and socially when we encounter new challenges. And cosmopolitics offer many possibilities. It poses challenges, but solvable challenges, and the opportunity for us to enrich ourselves and gain wider psychological range.
Thank you for watching Research in the Spotlight, a podcast for scientists and passionate science people made under the Norway Grants Research Programme by the Executive Agency for Higher Education, Research, Development and Innovation Funding as program operator. Until the next time, like and share this episode if you think science is a key to a better future.